Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tarot Insider. I'm Dax Carlisle, and with me, of course, Susanne Warnett. Nope, she's over there.
Hi, everybody.
Look there.
Welcome to the show. Where have you put me at?
We are super excited. We have with us author Gwendolyn Womack. In fact, I don't even know. Gwen, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, you are.
Forgot to ask you that yesterday, In honor of Gwen being on the show, rather than wearing my normal, fancy button-down shirts and everything like that, today I have on the awesome shirt because her book, The Fortune Teller, is awesome.
Oh, thanks.
I told you this is going to be fun, right? Yeah, so this is actually something new for us. We have, over the last 8 years, interviewed hundreds of tarot authors, deck artists and creators, tarot teachers. This is the first time that I can think of. I don't know if you can think of anything, Susanne.
Certainly not that we've done.
Well, certainly not. Yeah, because the show is brand new, right? This one. Yeah.
This one, yeah.
But even way back years ago when I was doing Tarot Today, I don't think we had any authors doing fiction. And I love that. I love paying attention to when tarot shows up on TV shows and in movies. In fact, Mary Kay Greer did this really great post on her blog. And if you just do a search for tarot in TV and just put Mary Kay Greer, you'll find her blog post. And she chronicled everything. She stopped after a while. She doesn't do it anymore. But that post is chock full of movies. I think movies and TV, I think the earliest was like 1940s. Tarot showing up in the movies.
Yeah.
And of course, we've talked on the show, right, Susanne? They usually get it wrong.
Yes.
I love when it shows up because it's publicity, and I wish there was more tarot characters in novels, tarot characters on TV and radio, like Cyndi Lauper on Bones. And she has the tarot cards,
I've not seen that. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to see the episode with Cyndi Lauper, and she's a tarot reader. I mean, it's just,
I love her. She's great.
She's awesome. Yeah.
So when Gwen...
So often we see it done badly, shall we say? So first thing I want to say, Gwendolyn, is thank you very much. Hey, it's actually a book featuring tarot that tarot readers aren't rolling their eyes at and cringing over. Yay!
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. So yes, your new novel, it's out now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Came out last Tuesday.
Came out last Tuesday. And it is The Fortune Teller, as we said, available from all good bookshops, including our own.
That's right.
So I guess my first question is, because it does feature the tarot, how did you get into tarot? What is your tarot background?
I was first introduced to the cards really at a pretty young age. I was on a trip to France with a group of schoolgirls in 7th grade for 5 weeks with our French teacher. And that sounds like an amazing adventure. It really was. And at the time, I really was not, understanding and thankful enough for this amazing opportunity. I just remember wanting to go on this trip and pitching it to my parents over dinner because my best friend was going, and I was sure they were going to say no. 5 weeks in France. And I remember saying, Mom, Dad, there's this trip, and there was a long silence, and they just ate. And then my mom said, honey, this might be a good opportunity for the girls, meaning my sister and I. And lo and behold, we got to go. And the woman who took us, our French teacher, she was from France, and her grandfather was a Romani, a gypsy, and he read cards, he read palms, he read faces, and so she learned from him, and that was just, part of who she was in her makeup. And by the end of the trip, she read my cards one night over candlelight in France, and it was just this amazing experience that really stayed with me. And then when I was in high school, I started going to some New Age bookstores. They would have psychic fairs, and I would get my cards read. And I became friends with a reader, and she showed me how she read the cards. And so I bought my own deck and how-to books, and I started reading. And then it was later, after grad school, when I was really kind of coming up with stories, that I really felt that I wanted to tell a tarot story that traveled through the cards, that really traveled through the major arcana, starting with the Fool, ending with the World. And I thought, well, what if a character went through the cards like that? Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the original idea that I put down in my storybook to write later. And that's was over 20 years ago, really. So. Or about 20 years ago. And it just, when I was finishing my first novel, The Memory Painter, I was trying to think, well, what am I going to write next? And The Memory Painter actually goes back to ancient Egypt, to the Great Pyramid. And I was just mentally already there, and I knew the Tarot myth. And I love reading about the Library of Alexandria. And so I thought, I want to take the Tarot myth and write a story around it, but also stay true to card history. And so that was, it was just felt like the right story to tell next after that. And so it was a lot of fun to write.
What was the theme? What was the storyline on The Memory Painter?
The Memory Painter is, it's also a romantic thriller, and it revolves around reincarnation, and it's about a painter who has been inflicted with these very vivid dreams his whole life, and so he paints them and basically hermits away from the world, and he paints his visions, and he has all of these abilities to speak languages and, basically the abilities that come from the memories that he's recalling. And so he's been hermiting away from the world and painting, and his paintings have become really famous. And a woman sees one at an art gallery that is an exact replica of a dream that she had all of her life. And so she seeks him out, and when they meet, it triggers probably the most important memory for Brian, who's the memory painter, and that is of a lifetime in 1980 of a neuroscientist who died right as he was on the brink of curing Alzheimer's. And so it's really a mystery for Brian to solve the riddle of their deaths in the 80s. And in doing so, it travels through time, through the lifetimes, and I actually use real historical lives to tell the story. And then it goes back to ancient Egypt and the Great Pyramid. So that was my first book.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about The Fortune Teller. What's it all about for those that haven't had a chance to pick it up and read it yet?
The Fortune Teller is about a manuscripts appraiser, Simile Kavanaugh, and she is on assignment in Switzerland. She is over there to basically appraise and dismantle a very large private collection of a collector who's passed away. And she's been sent by her firm in New York, and she's going to take the most important pieces of the collection, and they're going to be auctioned back in New York. And then she's going to create mini collections to donate to libraries and museums. And the estate has basically hired her to do this. So while she's on assignment in Switzerland, she finds this very mysterious manuscript that has been secreted away from the rest of the collection. And it's written in ancient Greek, and she starts translating it, and it is a memoir that's over 2,000 years old that was written in the time of Cleopatra in Alexandria, Egypt, and it's written by an ancient seer. And it turns out to be a prophecy. And as she translate it, really the story takes off. So it really alternates between the present day storyline and the memoir, as that journeys through time. So
I love stories like that where they go back and forth.
Yeah.
Unless it gets too confusing,
like
because I don't want to think that hard, right?
Yeah, no, and it was one of those books that I have to say, when I was reading it, because I am a bit of a book nerd, book geek. I'll go with book geek. It sounds
I like
slightly
geek, yeah.
yes.
Either one's
You're
works for
definitely a
me.
book geek.
Yeah, exactly. I had, in my very first house that I bought, I turned one of the bedrooms into a library with fitted shelving and everything. When you're writing about these wonderful ancient libraries and museums and things, oh my goodness, I just wanted to curl up with your book in a nook in one of those libraries and just kind of, and just lose myself for an afternoon. So what was the what was the research process like? Because it felt, reading it flowed very naturally, like you weren't trying to cram in loads of Wikipedia facts, So what was your, it just made you really feel like you were there. So what was your kind of research process like? How long did it take from when you decided to actually start this book again?
I would say when I first started trying to kind of tackle the story, I probably took about 6 months just reading. And I was reading, I really took the idea of, the tarot being lost symbols from antiquity, and it really tied in, as I was writing and researching, to lost libraries and the rise and fall of libraries and the loss of knowledge and the reclaiming of it. And so it really became this, they went hand in hand for me. And so as this ancient, basically set of symbols is making its way through time, we're also following the libraries, because that back then, before there was the internet, before there was all this, that was the hub. That was where all the minds met, and and it still is, but that was it. And I was just fascinated to read about it and write about it. It was, so thank you. I really, it is a love letter to libraries. It really is.
That is exactly what it feels like. As much as the tarot ripples through it, it's the knowledge really that's at the base of all of this, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The knowledge of the future, mm-hmm. to the knowledge of the past, and how the two sort of interwove as we go through the story. It was really interesting to sort of see how it was done, as somebody who's starting out on my own writing adventure, to see that kind of, because I'm terrible, and I guess maybe you're the same. Sometimes when you're reading a book and it's really good, you're mentally taking notes on not necessarily what they're doing, but how they're doing it, and so it was a really interesting journey that you took us on.
Oh, thanks.
Through the characters.
What I'm really fascinated by is that they haven't done this before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's one of the great mysteries of tarot. In fact, we were just talking about that on one of our recent episodes of the show, Tarot Myths and Mysteries. And one of the big mysteries is, where did it come from? There's no documentation.
Right.
You can only research it back so far, early 1400s, maybe the late 1300s,
Right.
And then that's it, and there's nothing written down. Mm-hmm. Who made the first deck, why they made the first deck. And modern scholars want to make it sound like it was just thrown together willy-nilly as a card game. And when you really study the structure of it, it's hard to believe that it was just accidental, all the little pieces. And we know that a lot of what shows up in tarot goes way back into antiquity. So you would think some fiction authors, we'd have, it's 3, 4, 5, 6 stories like this, different accounts of how the tarot came to be and things like that.
Yeah, I haven't come across a book like it that did that, which, I tend not to really pay attention to when I'm really kind of hooked on a story. I actually try to stay away from anything like it. Now I found this list on Goodreads about books that deal with tarot, which is fun. Someone linked my book to it. So it's been neat to look through that list of books that dabble, that really have mentions in it. But yeah, no, I think it's a wonderful canvas to play with. It's just rich with possibilities, and actually I've had some writers say, "Oh, I'm working on a tarot story," and I think that's great.
We're gonna have more. Oh, thank God.
And I guess that's the advantage with being a fiction writer, is that you can, because we don't have a provable creation story for the tarot, you can use your artistic license and create one. And the key, I think, is to make it plausible, which this is.
You're not going against canon or anything like that.
That's right. So for
it.
me, it was definitely, I felt, because there wasn't an origin story that was set. For me, it just gave me license to really kind of go for it. And I did write the scene where the myth and card history meet, so I purposely created the moment where it's almost like passing the torch, and now we're in card history. So, I really did. I kept in mind, hoping tarot experts would read it, as well as readers who had never read, knew anything about tarot, and was interested to learn more. So I was really wanting to have a card historian or a tarot expert read the book and enjoy it just for a story, so that was definitely on my mind, to be a stickler a bit to the card history.
Yeah, because we often see the tarot as a kind of a plot point. It's become slightly lazy shorthand sometimes in pop culture for, this is the slightly odd girl, and it usually is a female. This is the slightly odd girl that reads the tarot, or the heroine is going to go and get a tarot reading. But it was so refreshing to see a story that actually had the tarot threading through it constantly, rather than kind of a shortcut to, okay, this is what we mean societally when we're doing it.
Yeah, there was no I definitely wanted to make Simile, the main character, be an outsider and not know anything about it, and yet she was really embroiled in this mystery that very much was affecting her life. So I enjoyed writing that, as and that was where the whole Tarot for Dummies scene came in, which I actually read Tarot for Dummies. It's a great book, and it's because it's like she has no clue, she just doesn't, and so it was really fun, to just kind of have her coming from that perspective, as opposed to someone who knows everything already.
Yeah, exactly. And let's be honest, when you're first starting out in tarot, those Tarot for Dummies and all those variations,
I remember reading that.
Cool.
Yeah, and Gwen, when you mentioned you mentioned origin story, and right away I thought of superheroes and comic books, and Wonder Woman's in the theaters right now, and it's real big, and I'm still waiting for the tarot superhero. The superhero who's uses tarot cards.
That'd be great.
I was trying to think how that would work. Yeah, using your psychic abilities and your tarot cards to fight crime.
Right.
That'd be great.
Magic, because you can use the deck for magic too. So
exactly, yeah.
The tarot card, he pulls out the tarot card he needs, and it gets him out of sticky situations.
That's awesome, I think.
If
Okay,
I
we need
was
to
a writer,
clarify.
I would write it myself, I'm telling you.
So I've got to ask you, Gwen, was it, I mean, from our point of view, we were, like we've said, we were kind of yearning for this really coherent book that featured tarot strongly. Was it an easy sell to your publisher?
Yeah, actually, they were really excited with the story and thought it would be a good book to follow up with The Memory Painter. And my agent, Brianne Johnson, who is just, I love her to death. She actually is into tarot, and she was so excited to know I was writing The Fortune Teller. So she was my biggest cheerleader, like, yes, you have to write this next. So it was really actually just a lot of support and excitement around the book. So it's been a good journey.
That's good. And I was actually on Goodreads yesterday, and looking at, and the first sort of reviews are starting to come through and that kind of thing, and they all seem really positive, which must be a bit of a, not so much an ego boost, that's the wrong word, but from a creative point of view, to say there are people on the same wavelength as me. That must be quite satisfying.
Yeah, it is too. I actually try really not to read reviews unless I'm tagged where someone wants me to read it. But it has been really great to get a lot of reader emails where they've read it and are responding, and that just makes my day. And probably, I think one I was really nervous about is I connected with Emily Auger, who wrote or compiled Tarot and Culture, and I gave her the book to read, and I was really nervous to have her read it because she is she's one of these scholars. She wrote this 2-volume set, and she really, really enjoyed the book, and that was like, woo, that really made my week because that's what I had hoped for, was really a Tarot scholar would see that this is an entertaining story using everything. So that was great. Yeah. But it's been fun. It's just, getting a book out into the world, it takes a long time. And so to finally get to the day and share it with readers, it's exciting. It really is.
So a lot of our members, they say there's a book in everybody. What sort of tips and advice do you have? How easy did you find the process when you were starting out and getting your first book published?
Well, I really came to novel writing through a very roundabout way. I started in theater in college, and then I went into, I got an MFA in directing, theater, and film. And then after I finished that, I realized I really want to write. I don't want to direct. And so I started writing feature screenplays, and I did that because I do love working with actors and dialogue, and from my theater background. And I worked, just writing feature scripts, and then I did that for a while where I was, I optioned a few things and developed with some producers. But I always knew at some point I would write a novel, like later in life when I felt ready. And so finally, my family, we moved overseas to Japan for a little bit, and that was really an opportunity for me. I had been thinking about The Memory Painter for a long time. It had originally been written as a 115-page script, like a thriller, but with just like about a fourth of the story. I still had to discover quite a bit of it. But I thought, when I do write a novel, that's the story to start with. And so I kind of started writing without really any expectations except to just tell the story I wanted to tell. And that was, that took a while. So that took me a couple years, really, a year to write the first draft, a year to rewrite, find an agent. My agent, that took almost about a year. And so that was a really long journey. But for me, like writing the novel felt very natural. It felt a bit like coming home, and I fell in love with writing again. I was like, I love this. Oh my gosh. So for me, I wasn't ready to write a novel until that point. And then when I did, it just opened up a lot of new doorways for me to kind of walk through. And for people wanting to write a book, I would say the key is perseverance and rewriting. And you might think that what you have on paper is really great and wonderful, but it really needs a lot of work. Usually it needs a lot of work. And so you just have to keep going back to, each sentence, each word, crafting it, and that's on a kind of a minute level. And then there's the whole bigger story level. I mean, there's so many levels to writing a book. So I think it's hard to, I actually just wrote a post on writing and intuition for Writer Unbox. And so Writer Unbox is a great website that has a lot of tips for writers. I highly recommend that. And there's just a lot of places out there on the internet to get inspired and, go to conferences, meet up with other writers, just keep practicing your craft. So
yeah, it's not as easy as people think it is it?
It's like after you've written a book, you're kind of on this high, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do it again. And then you're doing it again and you're like, holy cow, it's a marathon. It really is a marathon of writing, and it takes a lot of time. And you just need to be in love with it and be happy. Find the joy. I'm always telling find the joy in writing the story. Don't make it be torture or you hate it, because the reader's going to get that. Everything you put into on the page, the reader will, it's sharing. It's all sharing. So
yeah, you do actually pick up so much subtext about the author's state of mind sometimes when you're reading certain books. But I know my favourite author growing up was the British author Terry Pratchett. Mm-hmm. And he sadly passed away a couple of years ago from early onset Alzheimer's. But they said right up until the minute that he could no longer hold a pen, he was still doing rewrites because he could always think of a better word or a better way of saying something. Yeah. Did you find that as well?
Oh, it drives my editor crazy. I literally will be trying to rewrite up till the last second. I literally walk around with pens in my hands. I drive with a pen in my hand. I just always have one. It's just, I'm always trying to rework something. So, yeah.
Well, modern technology now, people are self-publishing all over the place. And I'd like to get your take on that, because not everybody goes the route that you went and took the time, got the literary agent. It takes years. Now they're popping up on, they write a book in a month and 2 months and it's up on Amazon, It's kind of crazy. What do you think? Everything?
No, it's kind of fascinating to me, just the power of the internet in connecting people. And with independent publishing, I have a lot of friends who independent publish, and there's pros and cons to it. And I think every single person has their own journey to what's the best way to tell this story, and what's your path. There are some people who love the marketing and business aspect of the independent, an indie publishing situation, where to me, that is, that feels like going to the dentist a bit. I'm happy to work with my publisher on marketing. I want to help, but to be completely in charge of it is a huge responsibility, and it's a lot of work. And I see authors that really they're very passionate and, dedicated. And so I think my only advice to somebody thinking of independently publishing is to just know what it takes to really be successful in that realm, and kind of make a name, and to make a name for yourself in your book. It takes a lot of effort.
Well, at the very least, get an editor at the very least.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Get an editor, get a designer, get all of that, because you're basically right up against a traditionally published book. It takes a huge team to get it through the pipeline. It is a full-on production, just like a movie. There's a huge team of people working on each title, and that's what they do, and they're all experts, and so that's an honor for me. I love working with the publishing team behind my book, and it's exciting. So that is just something I knew I wanted to experience. And so if you are indie publishing, you need to find those people yourself. And writers do find them, but you need to, maybe find a mentor, somebody who's been down that road and can really guide you. So.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than people think. They think
it's all complicated.
Just drink coffee, write your book, and it's amazing from the start, and then you just go, ta-da, and it just sells. And there's so many different stages in the process. Many different people that need to be involved.
I mean, the editing process for me is it's intensive. You work really hard on the edit. You have developmental edits, you have a line edit, you have a copy edit, it's proofed a gazillion times. It's a lot of wordsmithing where every word is under a microscope, every single word and detail. So I love it. It's exciting. So to me.
Certainly very inspiring. But you do sit there and you're like, how do people do it? I don't know how people do it.
Well, you're writing every day, and I think that's a key, right, Susanne? Writing every day, and
getting into the rhythm.
What about the serious process of getting a literary agent? You said it took over a year. I mean, how do you even do that?
For me, for me, it took me a year because I was actually rewriting the manuscript as I was querying agents. So basically, I would recommend looking at querytracker.net or org. It's an online database that you can kind of plug in the genre of your story, and it'll generate a list of agents, and you need to go research each agent, look at who they're representing, what did they like, really be selective, because you're trying to find somebody that you're going to build a business relationship with, a partnership. So there needs to be a rapport there, and then you need to craft an email that kind of states who you are and why you're contacting them and what your book is about, and then, follow their submission guidelines. It's different for everybody. And just make sure, particularly the first pages of your manuscript are really solid. I was querying for several months and kind of piling up the rejections, and I realized that my manuscript was really starting off completely wrong. This is for the memory painter, so I did major surgery on it, and took 3 months off of the whole process to rewrite it, and then went back. So, it just takes time, and sometimes distance is the best thing, to just step away from your work, then go back to it, pretend you've never seen it before in your life, and how does it read, and be honest with yourself, and be critical and brutal, and rework it. So getting an agent takes a lot of time, and it's for most people, it's a hard, long haul. There are some people who have great Cinderella stories, but they're kind of one, in a large pool of writers out there. So.
Yeah. And even those that have kind of made it, as you think, you're still going through this process every single time you've got a book in the works. It
doesn't get easier. You're still having to, it's all the same, you got to get back to the keyboard and just keep at it. So.
And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Yeah, exactly. So, most people, like we said, your book is out now. Exhibit A, your book is out now. Your sexy book.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to mention something real quick.
Yes, go on.
The fortune teller is on page 1 of our bookstore. If you're on tarotguild.org, our main website, click bookstore, or type it in your browser, tarotguild.org/bookstore. Also, tarotguild.org/the fortune teller will take you right there.
Great.
So, now your book is out. and it's flying free.
Mm-hmm.
Some people would sit back and relax, go on holiday. What are you up to now?
I'm actually in the middle of writing my next book, and I'm really entrenched in the next story. So it was funny, before we were getting on air, I was literally looking at my character list for the fortune teller in case we were talking characters, because my mind is on a whole other set. You know, I didn't want to forget anybody's name, because
I forgot that story.
I know, it's horrible. Anyway, I'm working on my next book, and I'm a little over halfway through the first draft. And I was telling Susanne, it's just the first draft's the hardest for me. I love to rewrite, and really just breaking that story in for me, it's the biggest challenge. So, lots of staring at the ceiling and taking walks and drives and just trying to get it all mapped out. So that's kind of I'm dividing my time between fortune teller fun and working that out. So,
because I guess it is kind of hard when you're trying to get that first draft of it down, because you've got to make sure that you know where the plot's going, you know where your characters are going developmentally. You've got to make sure you're hitting all those key points in a logical way, and making sure everything's tied up at the end, unless of course you're already planning sequels and that kind of thing. But you need to, I suppose it's quite, are you one of those people that has like post-it notes everywhere to remind you that you need, you thought of that last night while you were cooking dinner and that kind of thing? I
don't have post-it notes. I have what I call notebook-itis. I have literally about 12 notebooks, and so I have so many notes that then I just have to take a break to compile and trim it down into, maybe 3 notebooks. I think I'm down to 6 now. I mean, I just,
oh, there you go.
And then I started using Scrivener for notes. Actually this last month, I was like, I really need to get a little bit better organized on I just want to make sure I'm not going to forget something. So, but a lot of it I just keep in my head. So,
what genre or area is the new novel going to be in?
I'm sorry, what?
What genre or area or type of story is the new novel going to be?
It's going to be in the same wheelhouse as The Memory Painter and The Fortune Teller. They're really all cross-genre. They're, love stories and thrillers, and they have historical fiction elements and some sci-fi. It all just kind of happens just the way that the story comes together. So this next one, the Fortune Teller it's a dual storyline with Simile and Iona from the ancient manuscript, and the Memory Painter was also dual with Brian and Lynn's, which was the present day love story. And this next one is again with the male lead, who I had this idea for this next book when I was writing The Memory Painter. It really kind of hit me, the first scene where it just really came to me and this character, and I was really excited. I was so excited I almost stopped The Fortune Teller to write it. But I'd already committed, mentally I was entrenched in The Fortune Teller. So I'm like, okay, no, I'll do that next. I'll do it next. And yeah, so I'm really excited for this third one. And yeah, I just have to iron all out. But as far as genre, I would say a romantic thriller that travels time, but again, in a different way, in a totally different way.
Anything that has time travel, I'm there. But what have they been saying about The Fortune Teller? Because I know you mentioned to us that a lot of people have called it different names, the cross-genre names for it.
Yeah, I mean, it gets called, genre mix-up, genre mashup, metaphysical fiction, romantic thriller. I mean, it's just, people are like, where in the bookstore would you shelve it? And I'm like, well, fiction. Let's just go with fiction. So, yeah.
Yeah. It should be in fiction, also in the tarot section, so that us tarot people can find it.
Yeah, definitely.
It should just be all over the bookstore, I think. But that's me.
Oh, thanks. Well, it's been so much fun just reaching out to the tarot community, and thank you for having me on the show, and it's been a lot of fun to share the book. So I'm excited.
Have you heard from any folks that said that they were tarot readers themselves, or?
Yes, I have. Yeah, and that's been really fantastic to get that feedback from tarot readers who really enjoy the book. So
excellent. Yes, I must admit I've been talking about it because I'm on a few different sort of tarot groups on social media, as we all are these days. And they're always saying, "Oh, are there any good books to read?" It's like, actually, I can finally recommend.
Really that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Another thing that I liked about it is the fact that there is, it is this sort of romantic thriller, but the romance element in no way swamps the plot. And we've all read books where it's like you've just thrown a romance in here to get the chick vote, haven't you? And it just seems really unnatural and just tagged on, like the publishers. Look, you really need to work more to the female demographic here. You need to put a bit of romance in it. Whereas maybe it's because we're seeing Semele come alive as she's investigating the story, and we kind of see her heart opening up a little bit more, and so it did feel quite natural. So there was no question with that, actually. It was just an observation. Sorry. Rubbish interview technique. But you also, moving on, you've been working with our friends, Janet Boyer, haven't you?
Yes. Janet, I connected with Janet, and she's just so lovely and warm, and interviewed me, and then there, July 8th is International Tarot Day, which was exciting.
International Tarot Day.
Yeah, and I've actually been painting cards for fun in watercolor, just as a creative side, and so I ended up painting a card for the deck, which was exciting. So that it's just been fun to connect with everybody, and Janet's so great. So
yeah, I just saw Ron's entry. Her husband. I just saw the image for his. I think it's Temperance, and it's really interesting.
It's so cool to look through them. Yeah, I think tarotdaydeck.com is the website. I think that has all the cards. Janet's been in charge of it, but it's very cool.
Yeah, so for folks that don't know, 78 cards in the deck, so 7/8, July 8th, and it's a Saturday. We're actually going to do a special live broadcast on that Saturday, and we're just going to invite everybody, just we'll all be on here at the same time. It may be a mess, but just to talk about tarot and International Tarot Day. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to put that in the browser.
There's a lot of stuff going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I was just going to put that link in the.
Yeah, I'm doing it too because I want to see if it comes.
I hope I gave the right one.
The first International Tarot Day, July 8th. Yeah. It is correct. TarotDayDeck.com. What a smart idea. And by the way, when you get on the page there and look over on the right, you'll see the categories, and you'll see the logo. I actually created the logo.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's great.
That was my little contribution. The International Tarot Day, July 8th, 2017, with the cards going around the world. Yeah, that was my little gift to the project, so to speak.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this deck. I mean, there's just so much. In fact, the first thing I'm seeing on tarotdaydeck.com is the Temperance card I was talking about that I saw on Facebook a couple days ago from Ron Boyer. And wow, there's a lot in it.
I think that that is for me one of the most interesting things too about tarot is just how it keeps renewing itself in time and history. If you look at how many decks there are now and just the form of expression, and it's all centers around these same set of symbols, and yet they kind of transmute and change, and everyone takes away their own takeaway. I don't know a better word, but with the cards, and I think that's what one of the beauties of tarot.
Yeah,
and
go
why
back
it's
to
just
the
so
1960s,
lasting,
and there was you could count the number of decks on one hand, and now we've got thousands. Everybody's interpreting.
Right.
But the advantage of that is that if you don't like one deck, keep looking. You'll find another one that will be able to connect with you if that's where your interest lies.
Right.
And that's what I love about this. Just looking at this tarot day deck, I'm actually looking at your entry there for your ones, which is absolutely gorgeous. And there's so many different artistic styles in this deck. It's quite an interesting meld. You can see the energy coming through,
right?
And that kind of thing. And you just how sort of therapeutic do you find the art side of projects like this?
Oh, very. I was really into painting in college, and it was my favorite hobby. And when you're in college, you're a little bit crazy. So I would stay up all night painting, and then get to class. And then when I went to grad school, I started writing. I would stay up all night writing, and so I couldn't do both. And I kind of had to choose. And so my easel in the memory painter, a painter. So because I missed painting, and it was really fun to write him. But the great thing is that since I started writing Fortune Teller, I really got back into painting. And, I would just have these kind of art sessions and just start painting cards for fun. And it has been very relaxing, just put on some good music and just paint. And then I'm still thinking about the story, and I'm still writing in my mind. So, yeah. And so it's been great to kind of get back into painting with this book. And that is what tarot, it's art and symbols in motion. So
it certainly is, it's much like art. It's all down to the interpretation, isn't it? And it's down to how good art will connect with you. And I think that's usually people's first consideration when they're choosing a tarot deck, isn't it? How does the artwork connect with me? And it's that very visceral feeling you get when you find that perfect deck. It's like, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
And it's like with the book, oh my goodness, I would have killed to have gotten my hands on that early deck.
Yeah. Gwen, what was your first deck?
I had the Rider-Waite deck.
Oh, the Rider-Waite?
Yeah.
Okay.
You started with the Rider-Waite as well, did you?
Yeah.
Do you still use it?
Yeah, I do. It's the same deck that I've had for 30 years, and I take it out sometimes. But, just seeing what decks people use. And someone just gave me I stopped by this kind of like a New Age center, and the owner was like, oh, get a reading real quick. And so the reader had a Renaissance deck, which I'd never seen, which was just lovely. It was really lovely. So it's been, I'm always fascinated to see the new decks and look in the cabinets at the bookstores and see what all is out there,
Is there a particular card that kind of you focus in on when you're looking at decks?
I love the Hermit card. That's because I'm a hermit. I'm a writer hermit. That's what I am. So yeah, I love the Hermit card. I tend to look at that one.
Cool. Yeah. I always just ask people that because I think it gives, it does really give an insight into It's like, oh, okay, that's, a bit about the personality. I think I'm weird because I always look at the death cards in deck. But I think it's for many people when they're getting a reading, particularly for their first reading, the death card is one that's represented in pop culture and that kind of thing. When I'm doing a reading, I always say, before I even hand them the deck or start the reading or everything, I'm like, right, I'm just going to mention the death card. I'll mention the elephant in the room, in this case the giant skeleton in the room, and you're not going to die. Well, you are going to die, but that's not kind of what it means. And you sort of feel the need to preempt it. So, Dax, I don't think I've ever asked you actually, though. Is there a particular card that draws you in when you're looking at it?
Yes.
Put you on the spot.
There's actually two cards. Whenever I get a new deck, there's two cards that I look at, and one is Temperance and the other is the Magician.
Oh yeah, that kind of sums you up, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. There's the Gemini connection there, and I'm Gemini, and actually, when you look at the Waite Smith version of the Magician, I mean, that's the character. Actually, that's what I looked like when I was younger. The dark hair, my hair was dark, and I was slim, and I looked exactly like that, and I totally identify with the Magician, and also just from the standpoint of what the card means, and to be the Magician, and because my favorite quote is Alan Keyes, the inventor of GUI, graphic user interface. And in 1971, he was at a convention, computer convention, and he said that the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Yes. That's actually a really good way of looking at it, yes.
Yeah.
So when I get a new deck, I always look and see, look at those cards, or when I'm looking for a new deck or looking through different decks, I'm always, okay, what did they do with Temperance? What did they do with the Magician card? Yeah. And there's others I look at too, but they're my kind of my standard, when I
right.
Yeah. But I think the tarot is just as much about creating the future as predicting it. And I get that, when I'm teaching tarot, I always talk about that. And the first cards in the deck, the Magician, card number 1 in the Major Arcana, and then the 4 ace cards. The ace is the card 1 in each suit, and you have the 4 elements that you can manifest in the physical realm, and then the Magician, and in the Magician card you have those elements depicted in the image, and it just from the very beginning, if you look at the first cards, you think, oh, and I don't think a lot of people, even people that are really into tarot, I don't think they get that. I think they always think of the Fool's Journey, and it's a valid way of looking at the cards, and the Fool being the 0 card, not having a number. It can be anywhere within the suit, and so it's kind of going through its journey, and there's a lot about that online, and I think it's valid, but for me, it's not the Fool's Journey, it's the Magician's journey, because it's more about manifesting your future than predicting it necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, and it really does sum up the creative process, I guess, doesn't it? It's that Magician sort of embodies it. It's about taking those ideas and, turning them from these ethereal wisps running around your head like crazy things, and actually getting them on page, having the the energy, the focus to actually create the book, the work of art, the deck, whatever it is your particular project is. So I guess, yes, you too. You may feel like a hermit, Gwen, but you too are the magician.
Wow. And here we are coming up on the end of the show.
Wow.
Grab it now.
I know. Yes, The Fortune Teller is out now. It's published by Picador, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Picador.
Good publisher. I like them. They always do interesting stuff.
Yeah, they're great. They're really cool.
So yes, that's out now. It's been out a week.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting times, and I'm already looking forward to your next book. I mean, no pressure. No pressure. But,
yeah, it'll take me time. That's the thing with with books that you're working about 2 years, from the day. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm hurrying.
I'll just have to learn patience.
Be sure to stop by Gwendolyn's website too, gwendolynwomack.com.
And people can email me through there. Yeah. And if you have a book club, I love talking with book clubs, Skyping. I do that. So.
Oh, that's cool.
To reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great idea.
Excellent.
Yeah. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank
really.
you so much.
And thank you all for watching and joining us. So I appreciate it.
It was great.
We weren't that scary, were we?
No.
You.
I've been having too much fun where I can't even remember what we're doing next week. What are we doing next week? We should talk.
Okay, next week, as I pull out my diary, what are we on to next week? Obviously, for those of you that are members of the Guild, we do have another module of our class coming up this
Thursday.
Week.
Yeah.
That is on Thursday. Next week, good grief, we're already up to Litha. So we're doing the world year number.
Yes, it's the middle of the year, so we're going to talk
Middle of the year.
personal year numbers and world year number numerology and see where we are now as we've gone halfway through 2017. And then I think we have tarot teacher Maria on, right?
Yes, that's June the 27th. Maria's going to be joining us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a fascinating show as well. Again, I wanted to say radio show. Fascinating show as well.
So so join.
And then that brings us up to July the 8th with International Tarot Day. So we've got a lot packed in over the next year.
Can't wait for that. So there's still time to join us live for Tarot by the Numbers, our course for members of the Tarot Guild. You just go over to tarotguild.org/join, or if you're on tarotguild.org, just click the Join the Guild button and join us, and you'll get that course, all of our classes going back to 2010, upcoming workshops, private interviews. We're rescheduling the interview with Janet Boyer right now, and she's going to do a private exclusive interview, and maybe we can twist Gwen's arm to come and do an exclusive interview, Q&A about writing. Wouldn't that be cool?
We shall be
happy to. Yeah.
Well, that's it, folks. And thanks so much, Gwen. And thanks for this book.
Thank you, really. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And
thank you so much
for finally writing a book that's fantastic about tarot and feels plausible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Bye, Gwen. Bye, Suzanne.
Bye, everybody. Bye.